Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of Next Gen Investors. Let's jump right in. Last week, my stock pick was SpaceX.
Well, it's 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. We had to skip.
Oh, yeah, because someone wasn't here. So 2 weeks ago, my stock pick was SpaceX. And it had IPO'd and was doing...
SpaceX 2X short.
2X short. My bad, forgot. And it had been doing extremely well. The first day went up, I think, in the 20%, like 25%.
Yeah,
Second day, like 10%.
Down so much.
I would have been down so much money. Oh my gosh. But it's okay because the market sent it down. And honestly, there wasn't really like a lot of news with SpaceX.
It was just the hype.
Kind of,
After
like,
the hype fades.
The hype dies down. And we made money. We made 7%. So good job for anyone who invested if you actually did that, even though I think it's probably 0 people. Okay.
The interesting thing about that is, like, now we know, like, Anthropic and OpenAI are eventually going to IPO, but I heard rumors that OpenAI is now actually, because we just saw what happened with SpaceX, they shot up like crazy and they just went down. OpenAI is like, why would we do that? We want, like, maximum hype in the market, but when you see SpaceX getting sold off, Anthropic still has hype because everyone, like, loves Claude and whatever, but OpenAI was actually thinking of postponing their IPO. But now for my stock pick, I had Adobe. And it was right before they reported earnings, and they reported great earnings, but they announced the CFO was leaving, so that did send the stock down. But honestly, their numbers are amazing. They're crazy cheap valuation, and my thesis still holds that, like, I don't think this company is getting disrupted by AI, but I did end up down 1%.
Okay, well, so now what happened this past week? So one of the most important things that happened was the Fed meeting. And they held inflation
interest rates steady.
My bad. They held interest rates steady at 3.5 to 3.75. But obviously more important is what we're going to see in the future. And what we see is that Fed chairman is actually pretty hawkish. And people think instead of the interest rates being cut, they're actually to be hiked.
Yeah.
So that's more important.
To add on to what happened with the Fed, the interesting thing about the Fed is they announced every time the Fed has a meeting, they announce what they expect for the future. But Kevin Warren said that makes no sense, and he's actually right because you're supposed to react to the economy. That you don't want to be a lagging indicator. So they said we're not going to give you more like dot plots is what they assume interest rates would be, but they still had it this time, and 9 out of the 18 Fed members saw at least one rate hike this year, which did come off as very hawkish.
And just to chime in, I also read an article that like a lot of the things Kevin Warsh is trying to obtain and do is a lot different than the previous Fed chairman. And I think that's really good because it like represents a new beginning. And the previous Fed chairman, I personally did not like. And this one, I hope will cut rates and keep them low. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now, I forgot to mention this.
This is the pinnacle of what happened last week.
Yeah. Micron, which I currently have and is my largest position in my stock market account, reported earnings and smashed. Expected EPS was 20, and it reported 25. The expected revenue was 35 billion, and it reported 40 billion. It solidified the fact that AI is still booming.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome.
The interesting thing about this is the same day Micron reported earnings. I don't know if this was like planned, but Apple, which stock dropped like 6% yesterday because they announced because Micron's making so much memory, they have to hike prices, and people are not happy about that.
I think it's BS, honestly.
And then I also heard Microsoft was thinking about making the Xbox more expensive because memory is just so insane. And so that's why I really think this run is unsustainable because companies can't keep raising prices. Micron has like 90% margins. They're not like shipping out more memory. They're just like over the past like year, they've just hiked prices like 10x.
And I just want to say something on the Apple note. I actually watched a video from a famous YouTuber, a tech YouTuber, MKBHD.
Yeah, shout out to him.
Yeah.
From us.
Drop it in the comments. Where he was asked by a company to make the perfect phone. So he used different pieces from different companies, like Apple's memory and Samsung, the Pixel's camera, whatever. And he totaled the amount of money, and it was like a couple $100. So Apple does not make their iPhones a couple $100. They're into the thousands. I think the iPhone 17 was $12.99. That is extremely expensive for the average consumer. So personally, I think Apple is this straight lying and making a ton of money off us buying Apple iPhones because all their other products suck, so they didn't make up for that huge gap. Okay.
Obviously, they're making money off us. If they cost to build an iPhone, it's like $500.
Apple, the iPhone makes the most amount of money.
Sell it for $500 and make no money.
They're screwing us. They're winning screwed.
No,
That's
really,
what's going on.
Micron is screwing Apple because Micron's not like hiking it 20% like Apple's. Micron's hiking their prices by like 1,000%.
Pretty funny.
But I do think this cycle will eventually come to an end. And the interesting thing about this is like they reported 350% year-over-year like revenue growth, and I honestly think no, the revenue hasn't topped yet, but I think the revenue growth percentage actually might have. And so that's an interesting thing to note. But
next week, one important thing will be happening. So Google and Verizon will be swapping in the Dow.
Yeah, Verizon's getting kicked out and Google's getting into the Dow.
Yeah, and to be honest, I do not know why this is very important. So let me just read on the notes section.
Here, I got you, bro. The interesting thing about this is now we're seeing like even like the large cap value stocks, like you think like Verizon, Walmart, they're getting swapped out for tech stocks like Google. Because honestly,
and
you're gonna see interesting. Everyone thinks of like technology. Oh, there's like only the fast, super 50% growers. But now we're starting to see like the Dow, which is known as like a value index, is adding companies like Google. They have like Nvidia, and that's because we're starting to see as the evolution of technology goes on, there's not only gonna be the 50% insane growers of technology. You're also gonna start to see more like you're gonna start to see more like large value stocks in tech.
So also on Friday, July 3rd, the stock market will be closed for a holiday. And
July 4th. Happy birthday, America. 250.
Yeah, America 250. And also there's a job data coming out. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but last time they reported 172,000 more jobs. So that'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about last jobs report is when it actually came in higher than expected, which you think is a good thing, more people now have jobs.
It hurt the market.
It hurt the market because now they're saying, and especially with the new Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, they're saying if the jobs market's doing well and inflation's going up, that gives them that's perfect environment to start hiking rates.
Yeah. So now let's talk about our stock picks for the week. So personally, I've given a lot of great stock picks on this fine YouTube channel. Beat him pretty consistently the last couple of weeks.
Oh my gosh, bro.
And I've kind of worn out my picks. So this week, I'm going to go with a strategy instead of a pick. From reading the book, Psychology of Money, highly recommend it. He recommended it to me. It's actually a great book. I'm going to talk about something I learned. So I learned that one of the most important things about investing is survival, first of all. And second of all, looking in the long term. Okay? If you think about the top 10 most influential investors, richest people in the world, these people have worked on their strategies and companies for decades, okay? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, okay? People like Warren Buffett have been in the game for so long. And you know why they're so successful? Because they don't, like us, think, oh, what's going to happen in the stock market this week? What's going to happen in a month? What's going to happen in a year? They think in 10 to 20 years. And when you weed out all the companies you don't think will be successful in the next couple of years, and you figure out a couple that will be the most successful in a couple of decades, you will be a great investor. And it's very hard to actually implement that because, 10 years doesn't go by very, very fast. It goes by very, very slowly, and it's very hard to do that. But if you could, I guarantee you will be a successful investor, and that's something I'm going to try to implement into my upcoming portfolio.
Not financial advice, by the way. My stock pick, obviously, I'm the goat of investing. So,
Definitely not.
He's just salty that, you can't beat my picks anymore. So, I'm going to go with
Who beat last week? Who beat last week?
I'm going with the software
Who beat last week?
ETF. This is a software ETF, and basically what happened with software.
How's Duolingo doing?
It's actually doing pretty well. It's up, since I recommended it, it's up like 30-40% or something.
Is that based on the actual pick or the market in general?
Well, they haven't reported earnings, so...
Exactly! That's what I thought!
Well, when they report earnings, obviously it's gonna go up to the moon, bro. But what's it called? IGV, which is a software index, and I think this is finally... Basically what happened is they were like this, they were going lower, and then a couple weeks ago, they hit a huge boom, and went up like 30% in like the matter of a week. And then basically what happened is everyone's like, okay, finally, everyone's realizing that AI is actually going to help software. Then in the past week, it's gone like back down. So,
wow, that must be such a great stock. I would really want to be into something that goes up 30%, down 30%.
But yeah,
I'm so excited to click buy on my investment after this video.
But I think investors, it shows you the potential of
potential
of when investors realize that AI is actually helping a lot of software companies. There's going to be massive upside, and it's going to happen quickly.
What if they never realize?
They will realize because it's just a
Let's
fact.
trust
It
you.
will
It's
be
a
in the
fact.
financials.
It's a fact. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of Next Gen Investors.